Welcome to Remember the Tarpons, a global issues modeling adventure highlighting the projected future state of the Bahamas and Caribbean regarding the inevitable effects of overfishing, climate change, and pollution. Enter Tarpon Bay, a quaint little fishing settlement on the western shores of South Luther, Bahamas, which changed its name to memorialize the droves of tarpon fish that once littered its shoreline within the last century. Tarpon is a mispronunciation of the word tarpon, which became accepted over time. The townsfolk believed that the schools of fish would line their shores forever. Unfortunately, however, the tarpons have all essentially disappeared. In fact, 1992 was the last time a tarpon fish was caught or even seen in Tarpon Bay. We believe that this is a great example and reminder of how systems without intervention can experience lasting catastrophic effects on the present state, causing a disruption, decline, or even depletion in and of the common stock or product. It is then our hypothesis that without an aggressive national educational campaign intervention on the effects of overfishing, climate change, and pollution, the Bahamas and its neighboring Caribbean region will experience massive devastation to its fish stock and catch, which will continue to negatively impact their economies, ways of life, and ability to feed themselves. Therefore, we invite you to explore with us as we remember the Tarpons.
The Bahamas is an archipelago comprised of 700 cays, characterized by a rich multicultural heritage due to centuries of colonial rule by various European powers and subsequent influences of English and Creole cultures. The main economic sources of livelihood are fishing and tourism. The population of the Bahamas is between 200,000 and 400,000 as between 1960 and 2023, and the population has been rising, meaning that there has been a population boom. The key events and milestones related to overfishing dates back to the American Revolutionary War, where thousands of American loyalists settled there, bringing enslaved people and establishing the plantations. Origins of overfishing in the islands dates back to prehistoric times when the scourge started. The issue was escalated by European colonization and the demand for food started growing. In addition, there has been insufficient fisheries management, which has resulted in an increased demand from tourism and global markets. The impact of overfishing in the Bahamas has affected the country in such a way that it has resulted in ecosystem degradation, a declining fish population, commercial extinction of species such as the Nassau grader. We anticipate that behavior over time between 2030 and 2050, we anticipate an increase in aquaculture adaptation, education on how to save the fish population, and implementation of new policies to save the fishing industries. With all these in place, we should be able to save the population of the fish. Lessons learned from past responses and policies indicate that past policies have failed to curb overfishing in the Bahamas because they lack sufficient data and enforcement, and in addition, they ignored the complexities of local fisheries. And lastly, they approached the problem on a regional scale rather than at community level.
Current state. Our causal loop diagrams illustrate how these problems reinforce each other. The marine resources loop shows how illegal fishing and weak enforcement reduce fish stocks, increase income pressure, and drive more risky fishing practices. Education and stronger monitoring can break this cycle. The pollution loop links diminishing fish populations and heavier fishing to marine pollution from discarded gear and runoff. Coral damage further reduces fish habitat and tourism revenue, worsening pollution. The energy climate loop highlights how rising energy demand exacerbates greenhouse gas emissions, thereby intensifying sea level rise and coral bleaching. Higher energy costs can spur the adoption of renewable energy and improved waste management, helping to stabilize the system. Fish populations connect all three loops. Healthy stocks reduce pollution and climate impacts while supporting marine biodiversity. Agriculture, economy, and education. Climate stress reduces crop yields and raises food costs. Declining fish exports cut government revenue. Education has become a pivotal balancing loop. Better marine science and public awareness lead to stronger enforcement, less illegal fishing, and healthier reefs. Energy and infrastructure. Outdated power plants, coastal roads, and waste systems are facing rising costs and increased storm damage. Transitioning to solar and wind energy offers hope, but it requires significant investment and training. Governance and health. Effective governance is critical. Strong security, capacity, and inclusion can stabilize the economy and improve health outcomes. Without action, declining fisheries and climate disasters will strain public budgets and health services.
Future projection to 2050. Our desired future relies on two levels: education and new policy. Public education campaigns can reduce illegal fishing and pollution. Government policy can promote renewable energy and sustainable fishing, improving GDP and ecosystem health. Comparative basis and aquaculture. International future of IFS data show that without intervention, fish stocks will collapse by 2050. Comparative analysis for Jamaica highlights aquaculture as a viable path to food security and economic stability. BOT graphs. Aquaculture adaptation. First, it will start at nearly 0% in 2030 and barely reach about 5% by 2050. Aquaculture expansion remains extremely slow in a base case, no extra intervention scenario. Likely causes include high capital cost, limited technical capacity, or a lack of incentives. Education. Here it begins at 20% in 2030 and rises gradually to 45% by 2050. Educational programs grow steadily but without rapid acceleration. Modest gains might reflect incremental curriculum changes and limited funding. Implementation of new policy. Here it starts the highest and increases the fastest, reaching 65% by 2050. Policy development or enforcement progress more than the other areas, but still fall short of full implementation. This suggests that while governance is a priority, political, financial, or logistic barriers prevent complete execution. An ideal BOT. Here, aquaculture starts slowest, 25% in 2030, but rises steadily. Aquaculture has been adopted by a neighboring country, Jamaica, and adopting the same in the Bahamas requires research and training. Growth accelerates after 2035, reaching 90% by 2045 and just over 100% by 2050, indicating full or slightly expanded adoption. Aquaculture adoption is initially slow, likely due to infrastructure and investment needs, but gains momentum as technology, education, and policy support increase. Education. It begins higher at 40% in 2030 and grows smoothly. crosses 80% around 2040 and reaches about 110% in 2050. Educational initiatives are rolled out earlier and more consistently, possibly because they require fewer physical resources than aquaculture development. The implementation of new policy, it starts between the other two, 30% in 2030, and grows at the fastest rate about 2035, surpasses education by 2043, and peaks around 120 by 2050. Policy measures may initially lag while frameworks are developed, but once they are underway, they accelerate rapidly, potentially driven by political commitment and regional agreements. Moving forward, to secure a better future, we call on policymakers to launch region-wide education initiatives and sustainability programs. Rising literacy and stronger environmental awareness show that Bahamians are ready to change the probable future into a preferable one.
In conclusion, while this video was not about the tarpon fish per se, the phrase "Remember the Tarpons" and the consequent data narratives were designed to help imprint into the national and regional psyches the need for a foresightful conservation strategy, a proactive intervention against the grim future forecast regarding overfishing, climate change, and pollution. We believe that education is the key to combating these grand challenges. Fortunately for the Bahamas and Caribbean, we are a people of laws, learning, and adaptation to change. Hence, it is not a question of policy enactment, but rather of policy enforcement. Yet, we must act now, using every means at our disposal to aggressively stem the incoming tide, because law without enforcement is worthless. Bahamian civil rights advocate Clarence A. Bain once charged, "If you can't fish, cut bait. If you can't cut bait, get the hell out of the boat." It was and continues to be a call for all hands on deck to be actively engaged in the work at hand. In this spirit, let us secure a brighter future for generations by educating the masses to, at least in essence, remember the Tarpons.